All right, I think we're recording. Is it Makoto?
Yeah, Makoto.
Makoto? How you doing?
Doing good.
Yeah? How's Japan?
So Japan's pretty nice. It's pretty relaxed nowadays. Um,
Hmm.
there's no real lockdown, but instead, people kind of just can't go have fun. People go to work, but they don't go to play, I guess.
So they're being pretty smart about it though.
Yeah, it hasn't been a major problem. Like we've still had meetings this whole time, like business meetings.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I've
Like
always wanted
I
to.
just came from a meeting.
I remember that. Um, I've always wanted to go to Japan too. Like, have you always lived there? Did you move there at a certain point or?
I moved to Japan about 13 or 14 years ago.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
trying to remember. It's been a while, and I came here originally to do my master's thesis, and I
Mhm.
worked as an intern at MEC. And then after that, I came to work at a research lab.
Very cool. How's your Japanese?
It's okay. Um, I I speak Japanese a lot. I just spoke Japanese in the meeting I was in. It's complicated language, of course. It's hard to master, especially if you go outside of Japan a lot. So I spent a lot of the time recently overseas just because I been busy with work and trying to create new business.
Did you just see opportunity or to study in Japan and that kind of brought you over there? Was there like family or?
Yeah, it was just really random opportunity. I went to an academic conference when I was doing my master's thesis, and I just got asked to stay there and to do internship. And so that's kind of how it all started. I really liked it here, so that's why I decided to go get a job after I graduated, and then been trying to work on my PhD as well here.
Awesome. Awesome. I mean, how far along are you with your PhD?
Yeah, it's a good question. I finished a lot of the research, but yeah, I'm kind of need to just give my dissertation, and been busy with my company, too busy with Soramitsu and with different blockchain stuff
Mhm.
to really settle down.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know that stuff can definitely bog you down. I feel that sometimes. But yeah, let's talk about Soramitsu. Um, like what do you guys do exactly? Like what's the objective of the company?
That's a good question. So our main objective really is to increase the efficiency of payments,
Mhm.
like because there's a lot of inefficiencies in payment systems around the world, and really it doesn't have to be that way. Bitcoin kind of showed that you can send money instantly to people anywhere in the world. Um, though even Bitcoin, of course, has some flaws. So we want to kind of uh, make traditional financial systems faster and more efficient, and then also give people more flexibility and freedom for kind of like crypto financial
Mhm.
ecosystems as well.
Nice. Are you these like separate products or are you merging them together or because I've seen a lot of different products on your guys' site.
Yeah, we do a lot of stuff. So we created our own blockchain called Hyperledger Iroha,
Mhm.
and we're working on Iroha version 2 right now. And in addition, we've done other stuff in the blockchain space, like we created a C++ implementation of Polkadot, um, we called Kagome, and then we created C++ implementation of Filecoin as well. So we are trying to tie some of the base infrastructure together. So for Iroha version 2, we're building a parachain to Polkadot, and that'll have some cool things on that chain, I think. And then on top of our technology, we built different applications. So we built a digital payment system for the Central Bank of Cambodia,
Mhm.
that's Bakong, which is like a kind of like a central bank digital currency. It's a digital wallet that anyone in the country can use to send and receive money if
Mhm.
they have a Cambodian phone number. So that's a really exciting project, and it also goes with our goal of kind of increasing the efficiency of payments in society. And on the crypto economic side, we've been working on a decentralized economic system called Sora. And Sora is it's a complex project in some ways, but really the idea is very simple, that every new token that you mint should be minted for economic productive output. So it's kind of a way to democratize the allocation of capital in a society. In something like Bitcoin, you create new tokens and you give it only to miners, and then the miners can sell the Bitcoins, and then they can allocate it the capital as they see fit if they wanted to. But it's not really a great decentralized economic system. So what we wanted to do is really create a really decentralized economic system that has some properties, like you can have like built-in like a smart contract that can increase and contract the money supply to match demand, and then through democratic voting, you vote to allocate new tokens. So that is something that's really exciting as well, because everyone kind of needs access to capital, and if you can democratize the creation of and allocation of it, then that can really take you to the next stage in economic systems. And that takes advantage of a lot of our technologies. So like with Hyperledger Iroha version 2, and then we built a bridge to Ethereum as well. So it's kind of, we want to focus on the crypto economics and the token, and then have multiple blockchains that are supported on that. So we do quite a lot of stuff, but it's all like really grounded in the same goal of trying to increase the efficiency of payments and give people kind of more fair access to a financial system.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you guys are doing quite a lot. In Cambodia, is that like a use case for you guys that you'd roll out, beyond Cambodia, or is that a solution like for Cambodia specifically?
Yeah, so we created this payment system, so we actually, we can easily roll it out in other countries. It'd be really cool to do something like in Colombia, for instance. But yeah, I think it's just kind of new, and a lot of central banks are not really sure that that they really want to provide end-to-end retail payment infrastructure. But I think some central banks are starting to see the potential for this. So, for example, in China, right, they're working on digital payment system, and other central banks are looking at this as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know there's a lot of central banks that are starting to really take a serious look at it. And I think China's got their own national digital currency that might come out pretty soon as well. So it's definitely heating up around the world. It's getting to be a pretty big topic.
Yeah, and really it's quite interesting, and it has the potential to really help people. It also has the potential to do bad things too. It depends a lot on the design of the system. And so, for example, for macroeconomic analysis, it's really important to look at transaction behavior on the aggregate. But if you start to look at individual transactors and individual transactions in too much detail, then you kind of are getting in the way of someone's privacy, and that's a bad thing. So having the right level of balance is really important. So in the systems that we created, like for example in Cambodia, we kind of made it so that there's a clear separation of personal data and where the data are stored versus what the central bank has, because central bank doesn't provide customer service. They don't need to know your identity, but to comply with regulations, someone has to know your identity, and that's what commercial banks are supposed to do in the current financial system. So kind of, you don't want to disintermediate commercial banks or other types of financial markets participants. Instead, what you want to do is kind of give a new tool for them to use that can increase user experience and make make their lives even better.
Right. Do you guys have a solution for like security purposes with blockchain that banks could use to make that easier?
Yeah, I mean, what do you mean by security? You mean,
Well, like I being able to identify a transaction or
oh,
verify someone's identity within a transaction for remittance purposes, maybe, or something along that lines.
yeah, so we built a lot of tools to do identity management using verifiable claims and the W3C standard for decentralized identifiers. Well, the proposed standard, right? So that allows banks to kind of make claims about your identity that they have verified. And
Mm,
this could be useful for cross-border reporting or other types of use cases. In Bakong, what we do is we have multiple stages of verification. It starts with verifying phone number, and then it kind of moves up to verifying, passport or government ID and identity. And the system lets you make kind of claims about this account identifier. It's kind of like a public key, but
mm,
it's like it's more generalized than that. So that's one of the tools that we built, and actually in Sora as well, we use the DID system to like create like randomized identifiers for users of the app. Um, so there's a lot of potential for using this kind of like self-sovereign identity infrastructure for kind of segregating who has access to the physical data and who has access to verifiability of the data. So,
mm.
so sometimes you don't care about what the data are. Like most banks, they don't care what a person's name is. They care, has the person been put on some kind of blacklist? Are they, are they in some sanctions list? Are they doing something bad? That's really what's important from from a functional sense.
Right. Gotcha. Are you guys doing anything in Japan, or are you guys just kind of doing stuff in Cambodia and with Hyperledger right now?
Yeah, in Japan, we just launched it's a little bit delayed because of Corona, but from July, we're going to be launching Byakko, which is Byakko is just a payment system at the University of Aizu, but we're taking this as a product and making it like a educational payments product that any university can use.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just a campus digital payment system. So you can, it's kind of like a prepaid system. So you go to like the campus store and then you can top up your balance. And then
Mm-hmm.
the reason why you would do that is you get like a discount at the cafeteria when you buy food. It's kind of like how lots of payment systems at universities work. So um, that's an exciting project we've been working on for a while. That's actually running on our public network, the Sora network. So Sora is our decentralized economic system, but it's also a blockchain network with validators. And that's currently using Iroha version 1, but it's going to be upgraded in the fall to use version 2.
Awesome. Are you guys still doing stuff with Hyperledger, or have you moved beyond that point, or?
Yeah, so we created Hyperledger Iroha, and we are working on Hyperledger Iroha version 2. So we still are very active as a member. It's important to note that the technology that we make, a lot of it's open source. So Hyperledger, the brand and everything, it's owned by the Linux Foundation. So it's not like our product,
Right.
but we are very proud and very happy to be a contributor to the ecosystem.
Yeah, I remember talking to some of the ecosystem directors. 'Cause at first I thought Hyperledger was like an actual like ledger, until I realized it was more of like an umbrella under Linux. It's kind of like incubating these ideas and companies working together. So I was confused about that at first, but once I dove into it more and it was explained to me, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool stuff. um, how long have you guys been working with Hyperledger?
We've been a member since May 2016.
Okay.
So it's been a while.
Okay, cool. Like good solid like 4 years.
Yeah.
So who's your target market in a sense? Are you guys building these solutions for banks and companies, or for individuals to use on mobile devices, or both, or all, or what's your guys' like main focus there?
It depends on the type of application. So like we kind of have a difference between the enterprise focus and the kind of the crypto user focus. So things like what we do for payment systems, these are mainly for enterprises or banks to use.
Gotcha.
And things like the cryptocurrency side is more for like people who are interested in decentralized economic systems and decentralized financial infrastructure.
Okay, gotcha. Makes sense. I noticed you guys had like a lot of partnerships too when I was going through your guys' website. Um, who have you guys partnered with that you'd consider more notable or that you've done projects with outside of Hyperledger?
Well, we have different partners that we've done different things with. So for example, we spent a lot of effort building a project called D3 Ledger, which we
Mm-hmm.
worked with the National Settlement Depository of Russia, and also KDD, which is the Slovenian Central Security Depository on. And that was a really interesting project to like build interledger technology between Hyperledger, Iroha, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. And then we also have done quite a lot of work with the open source community for Hyperledger Iroha. So Hyperledger Iroha, we have kind of like a study group here in Japan, and that is where you probably saw a lot of the logos and stuff for different companies.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So like, yeah, we kind of just sometimes do these study groups and stuff like that. Some of these companies have also used Iroha for some different programs or for POCs, things like that.
Very cool. What are these like interledger stuff? Because I hear a lot of companies talk about it, but like, what does it mean when you're building some type of like interledger solution? Is that just between blockchains or?
Yeah, so interledger is mainly we focus on assets and moving these assets between different ledgers. So yeah, mainly between blockchains. It doesn't really have to be a blockchain. You could like do it in a more generalized way, but that's the current idea. Yeah, so that's like, let's say you create an asset on Ethereum and you want to use it inside another system. You know, you want to be able to lock this asset on Ethereum and then move it to another blockchain. So there's different protocols to do that. One of them is Xclaim, which is kind of from the Bitcoin kind of community, but we're doing quite a lot. Xclaim is also being implemented in Polkadot to build a bridge between Bitcoin and Polkadot. So there's a lot of really exciting work out there.
What's Polkadot?
So Polkadot is it's kind of like a group of blockchains that kind of implement the same messaging protocol, and they're able to kind of work together through a Polkadot host. And the advantage of this is like everyone can have their own chain. You can be your own kingdom and your own leader, and you have your own like domain, but you can still have full interoperability, especially with your assets. So you can move your asset from one chain to another chain. So we also got a grant to work on well, we're helping to contribute to a DEX, to the open source code base for a decentralized exchange in the Polkadot ecosystem. And that's going to be on one of the what's called a parachain in Polkadot. And then lots of people can move assets from other parachains through the Polkadot host into this chain. So it's kind of an exciting way to kind of move things around.
Yeah, that is exciting. It's still kind of like new to me. I think that's new to a lot of people. So I think it'll be pretty cool to see some of that stuff develop. Have you noticed like any, or had to go through any hurdles in the industry or in Japan with Soramitsu as a company? Or were there any like regulations or things that kind of held you guys back?
So we don't do too much that because we're mainly just a software developer. So we don't do too much that would get in the way of different laws. So for example, the payment systems that we build, we don't really don't really operate them, right? So we kind of give these to like central bank or to university or something. So they kind of run this in their own environments.
Mhm.
But for the token for Sora, we decided to release this in Switzerland because they had a nice legal framework about this. So we kind of went through the process of establishing there and releasing the token, which is a non-trivial process. It took quite a lot of work and effort. It took years of work really to do that.
Gotcha. What about on the flip side? Like, were there ways that Japan was promoting you guys, or like you mentioned grants and stuff like that, or like how did they help support you?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of advantages to being a Japanese company. So it is a very, I would say, collaborative environment to do business in. A lot of Japanese companies, it's only work with Japanese companies for various reasons, and so it's a good way to kind of work together, and we collaborate with a lot of companies quite a lot.
Is that just a cultural thing, just wanting to work with Japanese companies, or?
I mean, it's kind of the whole thing about collaboration is actually a very cultural thing. So instead of just trying to dominate the whole market, people often will work together, and maybe there'd be some huge corporation, and then lots of people would kind of work with the corporation. And there's different models, of course, too. But generally, it's a really what's a good word? It's a really solid environment to do business in, and there's besides things like natural disasters, it's a very stable and safe place. There's always
you haven't had a natural disaster in a while, have you?
Don't say that. Come on.
Well, hopefully not.
Come on. Don't jinx it. Well, I mean, there's disasters all the time in Japan. So like typhoon, or there's more than 100 active volcanoes. There's earthquakes all the time. So there's always something going on. Usually it doesn't affect stuff we're doing, but I mean, it's just a part of life. I'd like to say that in Japan, the natural complexity is hard because of the environment and stuff, but the artificial complexity is low. So if you're familiar with the work of Herbert Simon, he talked a lot about artificial versus natural, and he kind of wrote a great book called Sciences of the Artificial, which was a big influence on my life. But it seems that it always balances out. If you have very easy natural environment, then people create their own problems. I mean, look at California, right? So California is a great place to live. It's beautiful weather, beautiful everything, but people create a lot of problems and drama for themselves.
Yeah, I like to call it drama. It's a hard place to live. It's very expensive. I lived in California when I was in college for 4 years, and just got a taste of it. And as beautiful of a state as it is, and I mean, beaches are amazing, people are fun to be around, so there's a lot to do, but living there is a headache. So
yeah, I mean, it's some good things and bad things. It's like that everywhere, but I think I prefer kind of Japan. That being said, I kind of travel a lot. Like before Corona, I was traveling every week. Wasn't really in Japan that much the last few years, and I mean, there's a lot of business opportunities overseas right now, and I think that it's
absolutely,
it's a good opportunity to go and take the chances.
Have you been down to Latin America yet?
I've never been to South America or Latin America. I've been to Mexico, but that's about it. I've always wanted to go, especially places like Peru or Chile. Argentina would be great. So
yeah, I've spent a lot of time in Latin America. I mean, obviously I've spent a lot of time here in Colombia. It's a beautiful country. It's definitely one of those places that's growing very, very quickly in the right direction. I've been to Argentina, Buenos Aires, beautiful city. It's huge too. But last time I was there, like a year and a half ago, they were going through a pretty bad currency crisis, and I don't think they're.
Well, I think now they're about ready to default, right? So
Yeah, well, they took a huge bailout from the IMF because I remember their currency dipping like 40% in like a couple of days, and I went there right after it happened because everything was on sale and they were taking US dollars. People were panicking. You had like middle class people that were broke, homeless, and out on the streets because their money was worth nothing. Like I could get
yeah,
a I get a full meal for like $2, $2 US. It was getting ridiculous.
oh, yeah, that's really one of the motivations behind our project Sora, is that we really want to create like a decentralized monetary authority in a way
Mhm.
that um, that would be able to have some rationality, but at the same time not be subject to kind of I would say suboptimal policies that so if you take money from some international organization, you instantly lose a lot of control that you need, and they don't always give the best advice either.
Yeah, it's true. When I was down there, I remember being able to pay the Uber drivers in Bitcoin. They wanted anything except for Argentinian
Wow.
pesos at the time. They'd take dollars and they'd take Bitcoin, and you had to sit in the front seat and you had to act like they were your friends because they didn't want to get beat up by the cab union,
Yeah.
get their car destroyed. Um, yeah, it was pretty crazy down there, and there's a huge demand in Latin America for blockchain and crypto and everything under the fintech umbrella. A lot of people want it. A lot of people are on mobile devices. It's very easy to reach them. Wi-Fi is everywhere. Um,
So why do you think that crypto hasn't really taken off in places like Argentina or even Colombia?
I think it's an infrastructure problem. 'Cause, I mean, you look at a lot of first world countries, a lot of countries in Western society as well, and they have really good um, infrastructure in terms of networking, internet, things like that. Whereas a lot of countries in Latin America kind of missed out on that rush and were playing catch up for a while. And now they've gotten to the point where technology is allowing them to kind of leap over some of those infrastructure problems. So, like, if you're, it's not just technology, too. I mean, like here in Colombia, for example, there's plenty of neighborhoods that in some ways look completely run down, but they're not poor neighborhoods. They're not in poverty necessarily. People are doing fairly well, um, walking around with their Gucci shoes and Louis Vuitton handbags and shopping and drinking coffee, like no big deal. But they have like all this new technology, yet they're living in housing that's like old, and their telephone wires are old. It's like they just bypass some of the things that we spent so much time building in terms of infrastructure. They can leap over that with Wi-Fi and with everything you can do with a smartphone nowadays. So they're all jumping to VR. They're all jumping into blockchain. So it's an easy next step for them, and they're hoping that if they jump into some of these technologies, maybe they'll actually leap ahead of some other countries that have been ahead of them for quite a while. So there's a lot of second world developing into first world type countries like Colombia, Argentina, Chile. I have friends down in Chile. I heard it's a beautiful country too. Got to go
I think a
skiing
lot of
there.
countries have really high currency controls. So, like for
Mhm.
example, in Argentina, they're trying to really restrict use of the dollar and probably cryptocurrencies as well. Um, like if everyone wanted to use Bitcoin or something, I'm sure they would restrict that. Um,
Yeah, the banking systems aren't very reliable, unfortunately. A lot of people, they try and hold cash at all times. Yeah. Um, some of the banks, if they're a good bank, they generally charge really high fees because they know that they're going to get all the customers and all the clients. Um, if you go to any other bank that offers you better rates or gives you a better deal, they're probably more likely to do something with your money or give you problems. So there's some banking issues for sure, and some of the governments down here are definitely not top tier at the moment. Um, but the people are pushing pretty hard and working through it, and technology itself is encouraging a lot of people to push for change. So I like Latin America. Lots of opportunity down here. Beautiful place to live too.
Yeah, I've never been, but
Highly
you've
recommend it.
sold it. You've sold me on it, so yeah, I should try to go. We have one of our developers now in Peru, so
Mhm.
it'd be interesting to come visit. I do think I would have to study Spanish some more though first.
Yeah, if you can pick up Japanese, you can pick up Spanish. Like I've struggled trying to learn Spanish most of my life, but I picked up so much of it just living here. In like the last 6 months alone, I'm sure that you could pick it up pretty quickly. Um, you'd be surprised how many people speak English here too.
Hmm. That
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah. One more question before kind of like start wrapping things up. I kind of want your opinion on what you think the market is, what direction you think the market's heading right now, not just in terms of cryptocurrencies necessarily, but like with blockchain as a technology. 'Cause, I mean, we've obviously seen a hell of a lot of development over the last 10 years since Bitcoin came out, over the last 6 or so since Ethereum came out. A lot of great stuff happening this year. Um, just kind of from your perspective and opinion, where do you see the market heading and developing?
Yeah, I think there's it's going to be interesting because a lot of uh, a lot of the promise of Bitcoin or Ethereum hasn't really been met. Like it's still really a niche market, and people I think haven't really thought through like a lot about how do you get adoption or what does user adoption look like.
Mm,
Um, there's some interesting experiments being done, especially with decentralized finance in that area. Some of the experiments are, I think, a bit naive, but some are very interesting as well. Um, so I think these will start to be larger and larger. I think there's no silver bullet for adoption. I think that uh, people want the same thing in blockchain as they want anywhere else, and that's they want money, they want access to capital when they need it, and blockchain or kind of the decentralized nature of a lot of these networks make it harder to get access to cheap capital um, because you don't have the whole legal system and everything that you have. Like if you take a loan and you don't repay it, there's repercussions in the real world, but in the blockchain space, if you took like a under collateralized loan, you just get free money, right?
mhm,
Um, so these are fundamental differences that I don't see easily solvable. And until these get solvable, I think it's hard. Capital allocation is really important in society. I think a lot of people in the blockchain space don't realize that enough. That being said, there's quite a lot of exciting developments. So I'm really a huge fan of Polkadot. I think Polkadot's really an awesome system because it solves some of the problems that we've seen in Bitcoin and Ethereum, where they evolve too slowly. They evolve too slowly because there's too much at stake, right?
mhm,
Like you can't just upgrade the Bitcoin network because there's all kinds of politics involved. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Even Ethereum, they're having a hard time moving to proof of stake because the miners have so much political clout, right? Um, Whereas in Polkadot, they're like saying, "Hey, you want to make your own chain? Go make your own chain. We'll make it easy, and we'll just interoperate. If you want to fork whatever, just make your own chain, move the assets. If people who want to move can move there. If they don't like it, they can stay. It kind of gives people a lot more freedom, and it's really a very fascinating and interesting model. And I think that's an exciting thing that's happening in the space. And I think it's going to become more and more. It's going to power innovation a lot faster, and then people are going to try many new things, and then eventually you're going to get lucky and
mhm.
reach some kind of adoption levels that are meaningful. Um, Frankly, I was a little bit surprised and that things like Bitcoin couldn't be better. I mean, couldn't have picked up better adoption during the Corona crisis.
Mhm.
I think it really shows that it's lost. the narrative of money, and that it's really become a speculative asset. Because people kind of just treat it like speculation rather than a way to kind of, for example, in Argentina, a way to get out of the financial system. Like you don't see everyone in the country suddenly waking up and saying, "Hey, I'll start taking this." But who knows? Maybe it just takes more time. We worked with an economist on our model for Sora, and he was thinking, the first 20, 30 years is what it takes to create kind of the moneyness of a token. And maybe that's right. Maybe we're all just taking too small of a perspective, and it takes longer. But the trends are good. I think crypto's in a nice cycle. It's getting more attention. It's getting some smart people coming in and building things. So I'm really bullish about the next few years. The only thing that would kind of like hurt my bullish sentiment would be more regulations. So like, for example, if a country started to use Bitcoin or something, and the government didn't like that, they would just outlaw it, right? So if you're too successful, then then that will start to happen, I think. So that it's kind of, I'm not really sure what way it's going to go, but I think that the key point is to kind of do things, build up things in a meaningful way, and then as long as you have the system dynamics correctly, you can move in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's been very exciting to see everything that it's done in the past decade, and I'm very excited to see what it does in the next decade. Yeah, so I think we're in to see some cool stuff out of blockchain and similar technologies. But Makoto, thank you for taking the time to come on and everything. Really appreciate it. I know the time difference is a little weird, but thanks for making the time. I know you had a meeting before that. And thanks for talking about Soramitsu and everything, and sharing everything you guys are doing in the space, all the development and all the use cases, all the partnerships and whatnot. I think my audience will definitely enjoy a conversation. So again, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. So have a good day. Thanks for inviting me on. And I'm glad we could finally touch base.
Absolutely. Talk to you again soon, and enjoy your quarantine, I guess, in Japan. Kind of quarantine.
Yeah. Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
So yeah, take care of yourself. Yeah, thanks
Will do.
a lot.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks.